Did you know that 58% of freelance writers make less than $10,000 a year? That's not even gas money in most places, let alone having anything left to pay your bills. And yet, every other post on social media that talks about copywriting makes it sound like it's just an easy side hustle that you can do to make $1 million overnight. As someone who's been in the trenches for many years, I am calling BS. It's not easy, but it is doable if you know the pitfalls to avoid. You're listening to the High Conversion Health Marketer Podcast, the show that helps you craft memorable copy and messaging that connects, captivates, and converts. My name is Linda Malone, certified conversion copywriter and an award-winning content writer whose copy lands many clients major contracts. My mission is to help you, the health and fitness marketer, attract your ideal customer with copy that they can't resist so you can grow your business. So today I'm giving you a proven game plan to not just survive, but to thrive in the competitive industry of copywriting. So let's get into it. Here's a quick story why I thought this topic may be of interest to you. Whether you were talking about fitness or business, you can find all kinds of grim statistics, right? About people who lose weight, gain it back, businesses that fail, founders that go bankrupt, so on and so forth. But yet, there's always exceptions to every health issue, every fitness problem, every fitness failure, and every business failure. So I've always been interested in finding out, what are these outliers doing that make them the exception to the rule? Because there's always exceptions. So I did some research, talked to other writers, copywriters, and uncovered not only reasons behind those who don't make it, but tips on how to avoid becoming a statistic. So let's start first with why copywriters fail, because it's not easy. I think number one, and this again is from talking to other copywriters, doing some research, is that they have unrealistic expectations because of what I just said. You see these ads, you see these people saying, I made, $20,000 last month. And, if you see that ad or you see that post and you're not doing that, or you can't figure out how to do that, you think, well, okay, this isn't for me, and you just give up. So giving up too soon. Also, relying too heavily on trendy tools or gimmicks. So right now it's AI. And if you rely completely on AI, it's not going to create work that will enable you to keep going. That's going to really help you stand out. The other is not knowing how to handle feedback. So we call it constructive criticism. It's really tough to have your work criticized, even if you know the person giving you the feedback is really good and they know what they're doing. It stings. If you ever see any of the cooking shows where the chef has to just stand there and they can get blasted by the judges, and yet they have to say, thank you, chef. You can imagine how hard that must be. So that's another problem, even with writers. And another thing is, and this I think can go along with AI a little bit, is some copywriters focus too much on just being creative, having that cute turn of phrase or a catchy headline, but they're not focused enough on being effective. So if that cutesy headline isn't understood or doesn't lead to conversions or a wordy paragraph confuses people, it's a fail. And the biggest one, and you hear this over and over from me and from everyone else, is you don't understand your audience. If you don't understand your audience, there's a whole slew of things that you'll get wrong in your copy. So those are the biggest ones, but there's also not charging enough. So even once you get in it, if you are pumping out all kinds of really low budget projects, and those are usually the worst clients because the people who give you the hardest time about your pricing, usually the ones who give you the hardest time around your copy itself. And trust me on this, I found out the hard way. So you want to be sure to charge what you're worth. Burnout is the biggest thing that I've seen myself and with other copywriters and writing in general, even if you're a content writer. If, as I just mentioned, you're pumping out all of this copy and you're working all these hours and you're not really getting paid that much, before you know it, you'll just say, I can't do this. It's not sustainable. And then lacking business skills. And I will admit, this is probably the hardest thing for me. I wish I had more courses in business before I began my copywriting business. I learned along the way, but you want to know how to work the numbers. And there's a lot of business skills that you need that will really help you as a copywriter. And the bottom line is you want to treat it as a business, not as a hobby. So let's talk about how are you going to build your foundation? So number one is you want to master the craft of copywriting. So how do you do that? The way I did it was by reading. You want to read some good books. John Cable's Tested Advertising Methods, studying behavioral science, using behavioral science in marketing. This is a really good book by Nancy Harhut. I took courses with Joanna Weeb. She has a Copy Hackers course, which I highly recommend, called Copy School. If you can't afford that, then just go. There's so much free information online, but really study the craft and see what works and what doesn't. And if you can, even if you can't afford a one-on-one copywriting coach, I would suggest investing in a group coaching class. It's so valuable, especially when you're first getting started. And a lot of copywriters will say, well, I don't want the competition. It's not like that, because there's so much work out there to go around, and you want to have the mindset that you're there to help other copywriters and they're there to help you. And a lot of times, well, if you have different niche than they do, you can refer clients to each other too. And you also will feel better knowing the camaraderie of people going through the same thing you're going through. And along these same lines, number two, the second way to really stand out and to thrive in a business that is hard to thrive in is to specialize. So it's tempting to just say, well, I'm a copywriter for everyone. And that's a sure way to just blend in with everyone. And you don't want to blend, because then you're competing. We call it the race to the bottom, right? You're competing on price. That's never good, because then we go back to some of the other problems. Now you're undervaluing yourself, and then you're burning out because you're doing all this work for next to nothing. So when you specialize in a niche or niche, pronounce it that way, you want to make sure that you put yourself out there as the specialist in that. So you want to be the go-to copywriter for that niche. So for me, it's health and fitness. And why, I separate myself, because I know fitness better than anybody that I know in copywriting. So, and if you're not sure what niche to pick, start with what are the industries that you're naturally drawn to? What do you have experience in? Really brainstorm for what you've enjoyed doing in the past, and then seek out opportunities in those areas. And yeah, you may have to write for free initially. I got started, just kind of a side note, when I first started copywriting. So I had been content writing articles for magazines for 100 years, and I wanted to do copywriting. I didn't have any copywriting samples. So the first thing I did was ask people that I knew, my friends, associates who knew that I was a good writer, but was new to the copywriting thing. And they gave me a chance. They paid me, but that's the best way to just start building your portfolio, start getting some experience under your belt, and getting some feedback and testimonials as well. And you also want to price with confidence, meaning, and this is number three, don't charge for words. When I worked in the magazine business, that was just the way it was. You get paid per word. It's different in copywriting, because 3 words could be an entire ad, and it could take you 4 weeks to come up with something. I mean, I'm thinking specifically about some of the Apple ads. Not a lot of copy, but I don't know how long it takes their team or the copywriters to come up with these phrases and these words. But you want to charge for the results that you can get for your client. So you base your pricing on that. And people also will value you more when you price yourself higher. Here's another side note. I had a friend who, when I was in a personal training business, and he was a trainer who was charging, I think he was charging $80 an hour. And somebody asked him to work out with him, and it was quite a distance for him. He just didn't want to do it. And he quoted them $300. He just figured, okay, I'll get rid of them. They'll never hire me. And they came back, to his surprise, with oh, that sounds about right. And then hired him. So we had to do it. He said, well, You know what? Now it's worth it for me, $300 an hour. So, and then along these lines, you want to say no to the wrong clients. So I've already talked a little bit about who are the wrong clients, the ones who give you a hard time when you haven't even started the project. So there's all kinds of red flags. Do not ignore red flags. When you are setting up a meeting with someone and they keep standing you up or they're ghosting you, just forget it. I give people one chance because sometimes there's a tech issue. And after that, though, you have to just, that is a sign. And so if you are not sure, ask yourself if this client is in alignment with your actual goals. So that, I think, was number 3. I'm losing count. We'll go through them at the end. So, and the other is that, and this one is a big one, is you want to have consistent lead generation. So what this means is it's tempting when you're super busy to not prospect. You don't want to do that because this is where you get in that feast or famine cycle. So you're super busy, you're not looking for new work, and then all that work, all the projects end, and you have nothing. So set aside time every week to put your work out there, to just network and to keep that pipeline filled up, schedule people out, say, hey, I have something next month available. Does anyone want this? On LinkedIn, I see that a lot. And you can get people to sign up with you that way. And cold pitches, I've posted about ones that have worked for me. It's not my favorite way of getting new business. Most of my business is from referrals, but that can be, cold pitching could work sometimes. You just need to do your research, make sure you know how to do it. And then you want to also overcome mental hurdles. So I've already talked about a couple of them. One is that you hear this all the time, is imposter syndrome. Even the best copywriters I know doubt themselves at times. And I'm always shocked at this. But if you think, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know if I'm good enough. If you have proof to the contrary, in other words, you've worked with clients who say, hey, this is great. You have feedback from people that is positive. Keep those things in mind. And when you start to doubt yourself, bring yourself back around to, okay, I've done this before. I've done a good job, and kick those thoughts out of your head. And the second thing, as far as a mindset shifting, is the rejection resilience. As I mentioned this before, there is a copywriting coach who I worked with who would ask, and it was a group coaching call. You would present your copy and they would say, let me know on a scale of 1 to 10, how, I don't know what word she used, but it was basically, how harsh do you want me to be on you? So if you said less than 10, she'd have somebody else do the critique because she was very direct and to the point. And you want to be able to take that kind of criticism. It's not an attack on you. It's your copy. And if you want to improve, it's the only way. J.K. Rowling's got rejected 12 times. I think it was before Harry Potter was published. I actually thought it was more than that, but I found it 12 times is what I found online. And then also set boundaries. Overworking is just going to burn you out, and it makes you burned out if you don't set realistic schedules. Take time, take breaks, set aside time for your own mental health, because no one else will do it if you don't. And the only people that are upset when you set boundaries are the people who want to overstep them. So keep that in mind. And basically that is it. So the roadmap to thriving as a copywriter and avoiding the pitfalls are, to recap. Okay. So build a strong foundation, learn your craft, master it, specialize in a particular niche, and then create a really great portfolio that represents. And if you don't have the experience, do some mock-ups, find some ads that, make up a company, just have something that you can show people that what you can do. And also the other thing to recap is to treat freelancing like a business. Price with confidence, set boundaries, always market yourself. And most importantly, don't let the fear of rejection hold you back. It's part of the learning process and it will always be there. So you have to build a thicker skin. And so if you found today's episode helpful, please be sure to subscribe, share it with a fellow copywriter or entrepreneur. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me at linda@thecopyworks.com. Shoot me an email or drop me a DM on LinkedIn. And until next time, just keep in mind that every copywriter, no matter how good they are, always started out as a beginner. See you next week.